Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Echocardiography Lab TEE Electrical Check, a step-by-step approach. My name is Kelly Baer and I am the Creative Design Manager with Marketing Communications at IAC. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment and review a few technical matters and let you know how you can participate in today's session. We would like today's webinar to be interactive, so we encourage you to submit questions. To do so, make sure the left side panel is clicked open. At the bottom of the left panel, click on the Q&A icon and the questions panel will appear. Please submit your questions anytime during the webinar, as we will be monitoring questions throughout the presentation and will try to answer as many of them as possible during the Q&A period. Also at the bottom of the left side panel is the resources icon. Click on this icon for a link to today's handout, which includes a PDF copy of these PowerPoint slides. Select the name of the file to download the handout. Lastly, in the lower left, please note the home icon. If you experience any technical problems during the course of this webinar, you may click this icon. A tab labeled Technical Support will list a brief FAQ along with a phone number for webinar support. For those who like to take notes during the presentation, look to the right of the slides and click the tab labeled Open. There you will see a white text box where you can take notes on today's webinar. These notes will be emailed to you automatically at the end of the session. To be eligible for the ASE CEU credit, you must be registered, logged into this webinar, then complete the survey. The survey will open automatically at the conclusion of the live session and be available from the IAC Pro Libraries website for 3 business days. If you are viewing this webinar in a group, please be sure you are also registered and logged into this webinar on your own computer so that we have record of your attendance today. Today's presentation is being recorded and will be posted at a later time for on-demand viewing. This webinar is a joint presentation of IAC and the American Society of Echocardiography. And now I would like to introduce today's guest speaker, Mary Ellen Orsinelli. Mary Ellen is lead cardiac sonographer at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio, and brings 30-plus years of clinical experience. Mary Ellen?
Well, thank you very much, Kelly, and good afternoon to everyone. I want to thank the Intersocietal Accreditation Commission and the American Society of Echocardiography for asking me to present to you today the echocardiographic TEE electrical check, a step-by-step approach. I want to welcome all of you to this presentation and thank you for taking time out from your busy day to participate in this webinar. This presentation is geared to the sonographers and nurses that may not already have implemented this process into your lab, and I hope I will provide you with some helpful insight and information to that process. So our objectives today, this afternoon, is to hopefully provide you some helpful understanding of the process in performing an electrical check for the transesophageal echo probes, some helpful insight into the benefit of the electrical check, and then some troubleshooting tips when performing these checks. Our purpose for performing the electrical check on the transesophageal echo probes is to ensure electrical safety and prevent any harm to our patients. There have been reports of esophageal injury caused by electrical malfunction of the TEE probes. Therefore, the IAC reviewed the information available to them and decided to add this as a standard for all TEE echo labs. In addition, to note, most transesophageal echo probe manufacturers do recommend periodic electrical checks. So just to give you a bit of an overview of what is needed for equipment, as listed, you need a TEE basin, of course some type of solution, be it an enzymatic solution or saline, and then of course the vendor that will provide you with the necessary components to perform this electrical check. And for example, part of the electrical kit in performing these are 3 items which are listed: a probe adapter, a dual electrode, and then the TE leakage current tester control box. Our biomedical engineering department has been extremely helpful in the process of purchasing this equipment, and we have a very active department with us and coincide with us, and they've been extremely helpful in implementing this into our lab. I will say if you don't have biomedical engineering to help you with this, you can certainly call your vendor of your TEE probe, and they would certainly, I'm sure, would simply give you some advice as to what vendor to purchase this kit from. So I certainly would reach out to them for help if you, for some reason, don't have biomedical engineering at your, for help. So without any delay, I'm just going to step you through our process. So just to give you a visual, on the left-hand upper panel, there's the leakage control tester control box, and this is the vendor that we chose to do this. Along with that, as I mentioned, there were dual electrodes, and then that's in the middle panel. And, of course, your Key Basin to the right. And then the lower left is your TEE probe, the actual adapter mounted on the box that actually connects to the actual control box. So the first step in the process is to be certain that you have your Key Basin, and you want to make certain that you fill that to an appropriate level with the solution that you choose. And the importance is it's either saline or some type of enzymatic solution, and that will provide conductivity to the bath water. The second step for us at OSU, we have part of our cleaning process and protocol is to use an enzymatic solution in our process. So we, of course, use this Enzyme if you fill the water basin to the water level, and then give a couple squirts of the Enzyme. This provides a form of conductivity to the water, enabling you to perform the leakage test. The third step is attaching your T-probe and making sure your adapter is securely fit and mounted into the mount that connects to the actual TE tester box. The fourth step, of course, is to place your T-probe in the enzymatic bath, and this ensures, and you want to make certain that you immerse the entire T-probe and then placing the handle on the handle holder on the T-basin. The fifth step is, again, the dual electrodes, and we've talked about that just briefly. And that dual electrode sits in on the T-basin as shown in the lower panel, and it sits right on the top of the basin. And you just want to make certain that that is at a depth of at least 1 inch into the solution. And that is basically the equipment used to do your electrical check. And now that you have that in place, you are really ready to perform the actual test itself. The important thing here, though, is making certain that if you do this electrical check, you make certain that you document your test results. It's important to note in our lab we have a maintenance log that we have our medical record number, the patient's name, the actual fail or pass or fail on the electrical check. We actually check off that we've done the sterilization to the T-probe. So all of that is documented in one place along with the timing of doing it. So that's important to note, and if you don't document it, it's as though it never happened. So I think that's an important thing to put forth in your lab. So to get started, there are 2 checks you actually have to do in order to perform this test. First, you want to check for conductivity. And as you can see on the panel, and this is a zoomed-in image of the actual control box, you can see on the bottom of the switch is conductivity, and the upper part of the switch is leakage. And these are the things that you choose and select when you're doing either test. So the first thing you want to do is make certain you check for conductivity. So you move the switch and select conductivity, and you press the on button, which is the green button on the control box. Each time the test button is turned on, the LED indicators up on the top, which show ready, pass, fail, low battery, these go through a sequence of 5 cycles, and you know that you have done a self-test and it is completed and it's passed the self-test on the actual control box. When it is ready, the ready light will glow amber as shown in the lower panel. When it is ready to, and that just tells you that you are ready to perform the conductivity test, you then again press your green button, the on button, which is on your control box. And you can see that that's in green. What you should get is green. The light will turn green if it passes and red if it fails. Of course, after you've done your conductivity check, the next step is to check for your leakage current. So again, you select your switch to leakage. You run through the same approach. You push the on button. That goes through, again, a series of blinks of 5 cycles, ready, pass, fail, and a low battery, and it goes through a cycle of 5 times. When it is ready, the ready light glows amber, and then you push the on button again. And again, it will show green pass, red fail. Pretty straightforward to do. Our vendor, and this is just, again, a zoomed-in picture of the actual control box. Right on the box itself, it has the step-by-step approach in terms of how to do it. And certainly that is available to you right in your lab as you set this up. I will say for certain that obviously if you have a failed electrical test, that probe needs to be taken out of service. However you choose to do it in your hospital, be it you notify your biomedical engineers to contact the vendors, or if you contact the vendors yourself, whatever way you choose to do it, it just needs to be taken out of service and the company notified. And this is obviously what we want to see. It's just, again, a zoomed-in picture. This is exactly what we want to see for both the conductivity check and also followed by the electrical check. A nice pass green button. So I just thought I would include in this some helpful hints probably to help you through if for some reason, and just things to be aware of if you should, for instance, fail your conductivity test. A couple things to bear in mind is that you want to make certain that your electrodes or your dual electrodes are at least at a depth of an inch into the bath of water. And the other part is the dual electrodes do connect to the control box, so you want to make sure that that connection is firmly placed in the control box and it's a firm connect. Those two things can lead to a failure in checking for conductivity. So that's important, and those are a little bit of insight in terms of what could cause it to fail in terms of conductivity. The second is if you should fail in your leakage part of the test, again, the red light will show. It may pulse or may remain red. The red light might remain lit. Importantly, I think it's a couple tips again. Confirm that your adapter is plugged in. The TE adapter is mounted on that mount that connects to the control box. That is really important. I remember we just implemented this a year ago, or now a year into doing this process. And one of the nurses called one day that was assigned to the room. She said, "Oh, hey, Mel, this is failing on me, and I've tried it a couple of times." I went in and I ran through the test, and it failed on failed as well when I was checking it. But I will say the problem is that the T-probe adapter wasn't mounted into the mount really tight, and so it wasn't a tight fit. So as soon as we repositioned that and tightened it up in there, it worked perfectly fine and it passed. So I think that those are just a couple things to bear in mind. In addition to that, sometimes the dual electrodes for having soaked in the bath of water and over time, film can build up on those dual electrodes. And so, it's recommended that you take that out of the bath, wipe it with paper towels until it dries. And then if all else fails, just start from scratch by placing new either saline or enzymatic solution to your Key Basin. I think those are all helpful hints to start. And then the last item on my list here is that this whole kit, electrical check kit, is backed up by a 9-volt battery. So that can potentially be a reason that is failing as well. So, just to bear that in mind, it is backed up by battery. So if your T-probe actually fails the leakage test, I do recommend very highly you test a different probe to confirm that your actual current tester is working properly and correctly. By taking a second probe, placing it in, and running through the steps, and certainly if that passes, then you know you have certainly proved that your T-probe has failed if it continuously shows red. I will just tell you our experience here at OSU. In fact, just yesterday, I got a call from the T room from the nurse that was assigned in the room. She said, "Mel, this T-probe has failed." And I said, "Well, did you run through the steps, do it a couple of times, be sure?" And they said, "Yes, it's failed twice now." And I said, "Okay." And then I just recommended to the nurse, I said, "Do me a favor, take the other T-probe, plug it in, and be certain that that is working all properly and that it passes on the other probe that's working, that presumably is working well." She did, and it passed with flying colors, with the green lit. So indeed, we felt that the integrity of the T-probe was compromised there. So we, of course, called our biomedical engineers. They came up, and they reported the failure to our vendor that supplies our T-probe. So it does obviously work, and it's important. And just a side note on the last thing that I have on this slide is just remembering that the 9-volt battery is a battery backup for this whole kit per se, and it can cause low batteries can make the red light flash. So for us and for our protocol in our lab, we have just put it into place as part of the whole process is to replace that battery, regardless of its condition, on a yearly basis, so that we make certain that we have a good working control box, all of the components are working well, and that the battery doesn't cause a failure for your testing. There are other manufacturers that provide this similar equipment in terms of performing these electrical tests on the TE probe. I would recommend very highly to follow the guidelines that they have. All of these will come with a manual for you to look through and study through. However, I think the bottom line is the step-by-step approach that I kind of went through with you this afternoon is fairly similar in terms of the pass-fail on checking for both conductivity and electrical leakage. I think if it's not part of your process in your lab, I think importantly, it's really quite important for the staff to inspect your transesophageal echo probe for any physical signs of damage, that be it bite marks or any cuts. And this should be always done between uses as well. I will say that the electrical check has been very easy to incorporate into the lab and into our cleaning process. I think that you can rest assured that it provides safety to your equipment and certainly to our patients. And, I just, with the experience yesterday alone, I feel so confident that we have this in place and, potentially, saved anybody from any harm. So just in closing, just a little bit, and to kind of wrap this up, is make certain that you, I would sort of recommend this as a, standard approach, making sure you inspect your T-probe for any physical kind of damage, clean your probe in your enzymatic bath, if that's the methodology in terms of how you do it. We do that at OSU. Do your electrical check, and most importantly, make certain that you document the results of your electrical check. If you passed or failed, and again, on your maintenance log, make certain that that is documented. And then, of course, after you've completed that, you are ready for the process of sterilization at that point. And then documenting the fact that the sterilization has been completed. Really, now you are ready to perform and feel confident and safe that you are ready to use this TE probe in your next procedure. The TE electrical check will become a part of the accreditation standards for all echo labs beginning December 31st, 2015. And just to end, I hope that I have provided you all with enough information and insight into this process. It is easy to implement into the existing cleaning and sterilization of your transesophageal echo probes. Mostly, I think that you can feel confident that you have provided electrical integrity and safety to your equipment, and more importantly, safety to your patients. It becomes very important, and I think it's a huge safety feature, and I think it's great, and I think it's a great process and easy to do. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. It's very informative and excellent presentation. Again, we just want to remind everyone that the standard is a requirement, and it becomes effective December 31st of 2015, so next year. And it gives everybody plenty of time to get your staff trained, to get the equipment in place. Call us, ask us if you have questions. But again, that's why we asked Mary Ellen to give this presentation, to help everybody prepare and have plenty of time to get this in place. And as you can see, part of the standard is also to document passed or failed. We have a saying around here, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. So, again, it's a part of the standard. And with that, we'll turn it over to Kelly and the gang.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Ellen and Bev. At this time, as Bev said, we will begin the Q&A session. I would like to introduce to you Frank Vermeeren and Sandy DePetris, our senior clinical specialists from IAC Echocardiography. Frank, Sandy, and Bev will be assisting Mary Ellen with the Q&A session today. Frank, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Mary Ellen, we had many questions regarding the time and period that you, test the probe. Is it done after every study or before every study? How often you have to clean or change out the cleaning solution, and if you should test it when it's in the rinse water or when it's actually immersed in the cleaning solution.
So, good question. We do it actually not in the cleaning solution. You need to have your Key Basin with either saline or an enzymatic solution before you put it in your sterilization process. So you don't perform it when you have the sterilization process. It's prior to that. So, and that's how we do it here. And it really, I forget, Frank, what was the first part that you asked? I'm sorry.
Well, basically, how often you have to test the probe?
Yeah. We set up for our day in the morning, and we start our basin, fill our basin, and do the couple enzymatic pumps for the basin and to perform the electrical check. And actually, we check our probe every time. Every time we do a TEE, the T probe comes out, it goes into the basin, and we do a check every single time we use the probe and then document it. As often as checking, as far as changing the solution, you can use this enzymatic solution. Consequently, for us, we kind of change it. We have the basin filled in the morning, and we probably change it mid-morning and then refill it, and then do it again probably afternoon and refill it a second time in the afternoon. Just so that everything is clean and appropriate, and that we're doing it right. So it has to be done after each intubation of a patient. When you take the probe out, that's the first thing. It goes into the enzymatic bath. We do our soak in that, and then while it's soaking in the enzymatic bath, we do the electrical check. After that, it goes into the sterilization tubes for sterilization.
Mary Ellen, I have a question. It says that their lab uses a central sterilization department in their facility. How are they supposed to work out the electrical testing in that situation? Just do it before they send it over?
Yeah, at this point, I'm not exactly sure, because I know that there are a lot of hospitals and, have that sort of closed process, and they send them out to be done in that fashion. I don't know, and I would recommend whatever sterilization process they have in terms of the vendor doing that, they may have some recommendations of an electrical check for that type, that closed sort of cleaning process. They may have it, but I don't know that for sure. But if all else fails, putting this into place just really takes all of a matter of a couple minutes. Having a Key Basin, doing it as I step through, it only takes a couple minutes to do, and I would do that, document it, and then send it for sterilization.
And to add on to that question, one of the attendees, Kim, asked, is this set up in the dirty room, or does it need to be in a clean room?
No, we have it in our cleaning room in the dirty room, and the basin set up on the counter as the physician completes the TEE. Either the fellow, fortunately we have nice fellows in our lab. They will take the T probe and bring it and put it right in the enzymatic solution for us, and placing the handle on the appropriate portion of the basin. And then it soaks, and then our nursing staff, whomever's assigned to the room, will go in, do the electrical check, and then prepare it for the sterilization process. And it's in the dirty area.
Okay.
We had several questions also regarding whose responsibility it was to test the transducer. And I just wanted to add something. One of the answers there is that the person who is going to be performing the study, the team, needs to be aware of what the last test was, meaning the test before the procedure. So if you do not have verification that the test passed after the last use, then you shouldn't use it until you test it.
That's correct. That's exactly right. And that's why it's important to document. If you don't document after each use, then it's like it's never happened, and so then you're starting at square one. And you absolutely you must check for electrical integrity of that probe before inserting it and intubating a patient. So yes, you would have to do that.
To hook on to that, one of the labs says that they check for leakage, but not for conductivity. Is that sufficient?
No, you really should check for conductivity as well, because you don't know that. The idea is those dual electrodes that sit in the bathwater conduct electricity, and you want to make certain that it is conducting electricity in the bathwater. So you really need to check that first and make sure that passes, because you're not certain that you're creating a current in there. And so it's important to do the conductivity first, followed by the checking for leakage.
Okay. We also had a question or a statement made by one of the participants that due to the cost of what they found to be the relatively high cost of the equipment, the ultrasound vendor instructed them to have the biomed department test it with a voltage meter or voltage tester, and they wanted to know if that was acceptable. And my answer again would be no, only because that tester is meant to do the overall electrical safety of the system itself, not of the transducer that's going to be put in the patient.
I agree, Frank. That's exactly right. And the thing is it's important. The vendor may come in and do a PM, and it may be a part of the PM, and it's always been recommended by our manufacturers to do these. But the important thing is not that I think you have to go by your documentation of your staff within your unit. I mean, I don't know, and they're certainly not doing it every time. So I think you're exactly right. It really needs to be done by your staff that are doing these day in and day out. And documentation, I can't emphasize enough that it becomes so important so that your flow goes well throughout the day. I know, we can do, 10, 12 TEs a day. We've got 2 rooms running, and unless you have staff on board and working together and, making this happen, it could really slow things down. So it's really important that the staff do it when the ones that are involved in the case do it.
And I had another interesting question from actually a couple of people. They would like to know what types of injuries can occur if the TE probe is compromised.
Well, as I mentioned, if it is compromised, there's been notes that there's been esophageal burns. And so However a patient may, explain that if the probe is down and they use one that the integrity is not safe, they may say that it's painful to them, and that could be they're getting, burns to the esophagus. So that is the ultimate, problem with this. And so that's why I think it was brought to the attention of the IAC, and they looked at all of this, thought that this was an important standard to put forth.
And actually, just to tag on to what Mary Ellen said, and this comes from both personal experience and from what was reported to the IAC board. One of the neighboring hospitals where I worked, a woman was severely injured, mouth, tongue, lip, severe burns, which ended, of course, in litigation. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to injure your patients. You want to take good care of them. And also reported to the board of directors was several other injuries to that nature and also a pediatric death. So, I understand that this may be an extra expense for your facility. It may take you a few extra minutes to do your TEEs and get everything cleaned up. But, the end thing is patient safety. I think that's why we're all in the business we're in. And so to spend a few extra bucks and take a couple extra minutes to assure the safety of our patient is paramount.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's why we're here, and, we all want to take good care of our patients, and I think it is paramount that we, provide this, and I think it's so important.
Mm-hmm. I have another question from Jenna. She says, when cleaning the actual TEE test basin, is there a specific process that should be followed?
Not really. All we do is, just warm water, and if you feel like there's film, developing on the electrodes, we kind of wipe them off in between changing in the solution. But really not. We just use really hot water, clean it out, wipe it out, and then refill it to the water level that's, recommended. And then we just start the process again.
Could we revisit the time and when you check and how you document? Do you test after each patient and document the patient you had just performed, or you test it and then document the next patient? How do you...
We do, sorry if that was confusing. If your TE is performed on a patient, the probe comes out, it goes into the enzymatic bath, we do the electrical check. Right after that is done, and if it's passed, we document the patient's name, medical record number. We have a maintenance log sheet right in our T room where we document the patient's name, medical record number, the time that we did the check, if it passed or failed, and we know that we've done both steps there. We've now part of our process is to enzyme our probe. So we know we've done that. We know we've done the electrical check. So now that you've done that, you now are ready to sterilize and put it into the sterilization bath, so to say. And then after that's done, we document that that's completed. So after each time we do a TEE, it is documented the patient's name that we've done, their medical record number, the time that we did it, pass, fail, and then we also document the fact that the sterilization has been completed. So after each exam, it needs to be documented.
Here's an interesting question by Debbie. We perform TEEs but are only accredited for adult echo. Is this something we are still required to do by December 2015?
I'd say yes.
Absolutely. I agree with Mary Ellen, although, if you're not accredited in TEE, you're not going to be asked any questions about it by us because it's obviously not a part of your application. But I would strongly encourage you, whether you're accredited in TEE or not, is to implement this because, again, for patient safety, it's key. So, yes.
And we had several questions regarding the testing of the probe and rinsing the probe. It has to do with using tap water or saline. And I think that depending on which agent you're using or what testing system you're using, it requires either saline or it can be done in tap water because it has to do with the system, the actual device you're using.
Right, that's right. We here at Ohio State at the Heart Hospital, it just happens to be our protocol is that we do use an enzymatic solution, but you can use saline. After we clean it and enzyme it, we will rinse it, and then it goes into the sterilization bath.
And another question about the documentation of the test. Let me see who this was. Rhonda was asking, is it absolutely necessary to include the patient's name on that log or medical record number, or can it be just generic?
You know, I guess it's just really a matter of how you do it in your department. We happen to use the patient's name and medical record number because, you know, we just know that's part of our log, and it's really a matter of how you set it up, but I think we do it so we know that was the last patient used, and if there's any question, you know, we can go back and say, yes, we did it absolutely after this patient. It was completed at this time, and the sterilization is done. But it's really a matter of how you choose to set it up. That works well for us, so that's why we've instituted that way.
I'm not sure that you have the answer to this question, but in the case of like doing pediatrics, where a majority of the transesophageal studies are performed in the OR, do you know of any routine of when that's tested, if it's tested before and after bypass? Because sometimes the transducer comes out and they clean it and then put it back in.
Sorry, Frank. I will say our OR here is absolutely on board with what we're doing. When we purchased our equipment, they purchased it for the OR. So the same process we have in place here is what we're doing in the OR. So after each use, after each patient, the process is the same. We enzyme it, check it for conductivity, then the electrical check. It's documented, and then it goes into the sterilization process after that. So exactly how we do it, the OR does it here at OSU.
And there's been a couple questions, Bev, directed towards us at the IAC. Is will there be a sample log or sample policy procedure when this is included in the standards?
Well, I think certainly Mary Ellen's presentation is going to be available, so if you have other folks who missed it today and want to see it, I think that, we're certainly happy to come up with a sample for you guys to see, and, we'll do that.
It looks like there are a lot of questions regarding potential vendors, a list of vendors suggesting to where they could look for these testing devices, because some of the vendors do not supply or do not make their own. So that would be something we'd have to investigate as far as what potential vendors would be available to purchase from, because each transducer is going to have a different type of testing system.
Right.
You know
I will say, I'm sorry, Bev. I will say go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Mary Ellen.
Oh, I will say the instrument that we have to check, we purchased through our biomedical engineers, but I will say that they have adapters to these that will fit each, transesophageal probe, because all of them are different, obviously, and so you want to make sure you go with a vendor that provides you the appropriate tester for your TEE that plugs in. So in talking with our engineers here, they did say that they do offer different plugins, so that it depends on, and again, I would reach out to your vendor that supplies you the T-probe. They may have suggestions as to who you should call to purchase this. I think that's what we really did, is I reached out to our biomedical engineers. They involved our people that supply our T-probes, and they made some suggestions to us, and then it was a matter of just kind of putting the process together and getting quotes and that sort of thing. So I think they, the vendors themselves are useful people in terms of who might be best to purchase from.
I also had a question regarding how long should you keep the documentation? How long do you keep those records? The logs that you out.
Yeah, we sort of keep them indefinitely, I have to say. This is a new process, and it's only been a year in place. Right now, because it's so new, we have everything from the start day. So I guess that's something we will look at. But really, we sort of keep our logs, and we kind of keep them, on our shelves here in the lab. So it's a good question. We haven't approached that thus far because it's, so new.
And one of these questions says, I'm sorry, I want to be clear that after each TEE, the probe needs to be checked before it goes to the sterilization room.
That is correct. You need to take after you've finished your procedure, your TEE procedure, you take the probe, you put it in the bath, be it saline or enzymatic bath, whichever it is that you choose to do. You do your electrical check, and then you are ready to do the sterilization after that. You have to do it, before you sterilize.
I think that helps clear that up. There's a lot of discussion in the questions about the timing of it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, probably the majority of these questions have to do with the timing and what they prefer or what should be preferred, the timing before or after. My thought is, in my particular experience and going to many sites, is that if I'm going to be in that room, I want to have it tested before it's used on the patient. I want to see what it does, because something could possibly happen between the last test and when you perform the study. So you always need to be sure. But that's just my personal experience.
And just a point here, because I received a little question here, or a little note that, if you're not applying for accreditation, we can't require anything, and it will not affect your transthoracic accreditation. Okay, I just want to be clear. Even though we strongly recommend and we hope everybody will do it, whether or not they're applying for TEE accreditation, it will not affect your transthoracic accreditation. So just wanted to make that really clear to everybody.
Just quickly to Frank's point about checking, I guess we've implemented the process in place the way we do it only because we do so many of them. We're constantly doing them all day long. So it works best that way, because no sooner do we finish the sterilization process and it's back out to the machine and we're ready to go with the next patient. So that time interval is short in terms of procedure to procedure. So it's a matter of how you choose best to do it. To Frank's point, you could probably do it just before you you could do that and rinse it and dry it and then be ready to go for your procedure. But I think it works best for us in terms of the flow we're doing is we clean it with the enzymatic, test it for the electrical integrity, sterilize it, and then we go right back into the room and we're ready to go for the next one. So the time interval is fairly quick with us here, and that's why I think we've implemented it that way.
I have one question from Peter. It says, bottom line, what steps are taken with a failed probe test?
Well, as I alluded to it happened just yesterday for us. You've confirmed the fact that it has failed. Obviously, you have to call, if you have biomedical engineers in your hospital, or if you don't have access to that, then, you have to call your vendor that supplies the T-probe and tell them that it failed, and you have to get a replacement for that. That cannot be used on a patient, at all, because it's failed. And, documentation of the fact that it's failed and that it's returned to the vendor is the sort of the action plan that you do for that.
I think we've already answered this question, but for the folks who have great periods of time between when they perform a TE study, they want to know what is the length of time that a good test will last. I mean, if it's not been tested in the last week, do you test it again? If it's, I think that if there's any question, you should always test it before you use it.
I think that's probably a good premise to stand by, Frank. I think, if you're not doing that many and, you've done one week and then you haven't done it for a while, it certainly doesn't take long. It takes a couple minutes to do. So for, the sake of safety and providing safety to your patients, and that's what we're all here for, it doesn't hurt to do it.
Did you have anything else, Sandy, on your list?
No. Most of the questions are sort of repeats.
I agree.
Kelly?
Okay. And we would like to send a special thanks to our guest speaker, Mary Ellen Orsinelli, for her informative presentation today. And please feel free to contact the IAC ECHO team with any questions that were not answered during the Q&A session. Okay. To receive continuing education credit for attending this webinar, please complete the survey, which will appear on your screen concluding this session, and also be available for 3 additional business days at the iacprolibraries.com website. In the upper left, click on My Webinars. Look for the title of this session, Echocardiography Lab TEE Electrical Check, a Step-by-Step Approach. Beneath this title, click the link Take Evaluation to complete the survey. Your certificate can then be accessed and printed from the very next screen and any time thereafter through a new link on the My Webinars page called View Certificate. If you have any questions about the survey, please contact us at webinars@intersocietal.org. Once again, we thank you for joining us today and appreciate your participation.